Good morning all. Here's the next lesson for Pre-Calculus 30. There is no section 4.2 day 2, so we move right into section 4.3 day 1. Again, it'll be PC section 4.3.1. I won't repeat that, you guys are getting the pattern. So today we actually move into something that until this point you didn't know existed. Everyone thinks when you hear trig, SOHCAHTOA, sine, cosine, tangent, they think those are the only three ratios that are out there. And I guess we're all wrong when we think that. Sine, cosine, and tangent are the most prominent three. They're the first ones you learn. They're the most important ones. If you were going into a science course, say a physics, also in the trades, they're massively important. However, they're not the only trig ratios that are out there. The three that we're going to learn today are called the reciprocal ratios. They would not be something very useful again in maybe many science courses or in the trades at all, but in high-end mathematics they are very, very important, and they're used quite a bit. So here's how we begin. If we just take sine of an angle, and so I'm going to use theta right now, and maybe in a later example I'll put an x down. The symbol there, the angle symbol, the variable, doesn't matter. Theta is usually the most common angle symbol. If we take sine and do the reciprocal, so turn it upside down and it becomes 1 over sine, that is a very important new function, and it's so important it was given its own name. The CSC stands for cosecant of the angle. If we take cosine and do the reciprocal, so turning cosine upside down would be 1 over cosine, it was called secant, S-E-C, and then the one that's the easiest to remember is if we turn tangent into its reciprocal, it is going to be called cotangent of the angle, cotangent of theta. For these guys, we can also do the old switcheroo, sorry Mr. P. If you just imagined taking the cosine and the sine and switching places, we would get sine as 1 over cosecant. By that nature, cosine, if we do the switch, would be 1 over secant, and tangent 1 over cotangent. That red line here probably won't be anything we look at too much in chapter 4, but when we get to chapter 6, we'll be kind of glad we pointed that out. Now, we already know how to work with the unit circle, and I'll say one that's not here right now, because then this will make perfect sense, I hope. If you say in terms of the letters x, y, and r, what is sine equal to? Well, you need to memorize that sine is y over r. So if we do the reciprocals, cosecant would then be r over y. If cosine is x over r, well then secant will be r over x. Its reciprocal, turn it upside down. And tangent, y over x, well, its reciprocal cotangent would be x over y. Now with this, we can then still go deeper into the unit circle. So what we will do now is some exact values using the unit circle. If it is okay, if I don't get any emails saying please don't do that again, I am not going to show you the unit circle and point things out. As you listen to this lesson, have your unit circle there, confirm by finding the angles, finding the values for x and y. And again, if this works, we'll just continue with that pattern. I'll assume you guys are understanding how to work with the unit circle quite well. Before we do the first out of 3 examples, I do want to point out again, the title exact value is very important. Anytime it says exact value, do not touch your calculator. It's not meant to be typed in. You do not want a decimal. You want to use the unit circle and get the perfect value with no rounding, the exact value. So the very first one says, what is the cosecant of 120 degrees? Our solution technique will be exactly like what it's been since we learned this in Pre-Calculus 20, but here's where the difference comes in. You have to know now that the ratio in the letters x, y, and r is going to be a little bit different. Here's how I would begin it. Number 1, cosecant. It is the reciprocal to sine. So sine is y over r. The reciprocal now will be r over y. Here's what's going to become very much more important. R is always equal to 1. In the old days, including yesterday, we used to just say, okay, fine, we've got it, and we would ignore the r equals 1. It didn't play much of a factor in things. Now it does. When we look up the y value at 120 degrees, it is square root of 3 divided by 2. Also, because we are now much more proficient with dealing with radicals than what we used to be, this is not good enough. What we will do is we will take 1, which is a fraction. If you needed to, you could write it as 1 over 1. And taking a fraction, dividing by another fraction, keep, change, flip, we multiply by the reciprocal. If we imagine the root 3 over 2 flipping up to 1, the 1 no longer needs to be written. We have 2 over root 3. We're not done yet. We still need to rationalize, as always. The unwritten rule is we cannot leave radicals in the denominator. We multiply by root 3 top and bottom, and we get our final complete answer of 2 square root 3 divided by 3. So again, it says exact value. This is the perfect value. If there was a way, and there is, which I won't describe today, if there was a way to type in cosecant of 120 into your calculator and you look at the decimal value, it is exactly the same as this, but in one way this is better because it's not rounded off. So we move to our second example. The second example is what is the cotangent of 5 pi divided by 6? And just as you guys are getting set for this one, maybe now it starts to make sense. In our previous course, when I said, well, maybe we know 10% of everything there is to know about the unit circle, you start to kind of see it now. If you imagine back in pre-calc 20, you had no idea what cotangent was until 4 minutes ago, and until a few days ago, you didn't know what 5 pi over 6 was. You thought it was a typo. Well, this is an angle in radians. So then here's what we're going to do. We will find where 5 pi over 6 is on the unit circle. And then, once we've found where it is, we will then say, okay, cotangent, its ratio. Tangent is y over x, therefore cotangent must be x over y. And what we need to do is find the values for x and y, and be careful, don't get them mixed up. X comes first, y comes second. Even very smart people I've taught in the past still sometimes make those dumb mistakes. And as always, I am the king of dumb mistakes. So we look up our values, and the x value is negative root 3 over 2. The y value is 1/2. This one's going to be a little bit easier. When we divide one fraction by the other, and we flip it up, I hope this isn't bypassing too many steps, but the 2's will cancel out, and we will be left with a final answer of negative root 3. Now our final example is what is the secant of pi? So we're hopefully into a good flow right now. Secant is the reciprocal to cosine. And one of the things I just want to throw out, there's a number of people who get mixed up, not with cotangent, but with cosecant. They do a letter association. They see cosecant and they think, oh, see, cosine. It's not a letter association. Remember, the reciprocal to cosecant is sine, and this is cosine, so don't make up any of those little rules in your head this time. It will let you down. So if cosine is x over r, well then secant is r over x. R is always 1. Just like in the first example, this is going to be very important. So pi is a perfect angle. When we say perfect, it's not like the other ones were bad. What it does is it falls right on an axis. It is 180 degrees. The name of it, which it's been a long time since I've said it, it's called the quadrantal, but you won't be tested on that. It's just good to hear it so it doesn't surprise you. We look up the x value. It is negative 1. And this was an easy one. No worrying about keep, change, flip for once. Our value will be negative 1. So then we can do pretty much anything with the unit circle, with the reciprocals, and with degrees or radians, whichever is needed. Now, what you will notice in the PDF version of the notes is number 4. I am not going to go through number 4 with you guys for 2 reasons. Number 1, I will not evaluate you on it for the coronavirus evaluations. And secondly, number 4 really should look highly familiar. The first part of it was exactly what you did in pre-calculus 20. And it was, I think I told you guys, I might even put it down as a title. This is a very annoying question that really only has one purpose. You need to memorize the x, y, and r. If you don't know that sine is y over r and so on, you were in a lot of trouble, including now that we know the reciprocals. So that question, you did something exactly like it, but only for sine, cosine, and tangent. Now, to do the reciprocals, we just flip our answers. So what I'm going to ask you to do is just review it. Just read number 4, and then we'll move into the assignment. And the assignment, again, will use the sheets that you all have, and it'll use a little bit out of the textbook. Thank you.